On today's show, what went wrong? The Ottawa Senators are swept in the season series, falling 5-2 last night to the Buffalo Sabres.
And with the Sens losing again without their leading goal scorer, Brady Tkachuk, in the lineup, we asked the question, does this team have a finishing problem?
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. For a final time down in the desert, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, and Pilsy, for the third time this season, the Ottawa Senators played without Brady Tkachuk, and for the third time all at home, the Senators have lost in regulation.
And when it rains, it pours, Ross. For the fourth time this season, this team has lost to the Buffalo Sabres. So no Brady Tkachuk, not a good sign. Going up against the lowly Buffalo Sabres, also not a good sign. This team, for whatever reason, has the Ottawa Senators number this year.
And they've been beating good teams. I forgot about the power of meaningless games. The Sabres had a 13-game winless streak in January that basically derailed their whole season. And now they're just playing free. They're playing easy. They've got talented players. Rasmus Dahlin, 3 points last night. Tage Thompson, highlight reel goal at 4-on-4. But it comes back to the Ottawa Senators. When you outshoot your opponent the way the Senators did last night, you have to find a way to score more than 2 goals. They were gifted 3 power plays in the first period, and they could not convert on any of them. Frankly, they didn't even get momentum on any of them. So those are the moments in the game, let alone allowing 2 goals on the first 5 shots. We'll get into that, but I just feel like this is kind of self-inflicted versus there's other games like the earlier on in the season against Buffalo, complete no-show. One of them was after a long road trip. They came back, were shut out. But this one, it felt like it was theirs for the taking, and they just let it slide.
Yeah, it's at home. You've got Dylan Cousins on your side. The Buffalo Sabres do not have Josh Norris replacing him. You have Linus Ullmark starting this game, your number one goalie. You needed to get the win, Ross, but at the very least, you needed to find a way to get a point. We'll take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Other teams found ways to get it done, and the Ottawa Senators, sure, they're still at a 98.5% chance, but Ross, going down 1%, although it's not that big of a deal, it does give me cause for concern, and we'll get into that later on as well. But that was a loss where we've talked about it. This team, while the out-of-town scoreboard can help you, at certain times you got to take control of your own destiny, and that was an opportunity to do that, and they let it slip away.
They certainly did. And I look at the lack of urgency it felt like they played with until 10 minutes left in the game? When it was 4-1 for that brief moment in time, it's like a switch flipped in their mind. And it's like, okay, now it's go time. Sanderson scores right away. That was almost infuriating as well. They go down 3-0, they score right away. They go down 4-1, they score right away. Where's that urgency when you're down 1 or down 2 early in the first period? It felt like they were just content with cycling around and making those extra passes, and ultimately it burns them. I'm just glad I don't have to see James Reimer play the Ottawa Senators anymore. That's 2 weeks in a row on Tuesday nights. He's ruined our Tuesdays. He had a great game last night. You got to give him some credit, but it did feel like a lot of Ottawa shots were right into the cradle throughout the game. And I'm looking at Zetterlund in particular. He's getting opportunities from great scoring chances, and a lot of times the goalie just puts their glove under their logo on their chest and says, all right, here's the whistle. Let's go next up. So Zetterlund's got to bear down here. And I get that he's getting opportunities. Him and Timmy have looked good together with the eye test and the analytics, but not on the score sheet, as Fabian Zetterlund is still looking for his first goal.
Yeah, and this is a guy that came to the Ottawa Senators with 17 goals under his belt already, and now he's getting maybe better opportunities than he was in San Jose. You can't really argue playing top line with Timmy and Claude and being on the power play on this team. You're set up for success, and he's getting those opportunities like you mentioned, but for whatever reason, he's just not able to bury it. I know it sounds like a broken record, Ross, but I'll play the track one more time. When this guy scores, the floodgates are going to open and he's going to score in bunches, in my opinion. But how much longer can we do this? Like, how much longer can that dam hold? And we're sitting here waiting for it to burst. Like, if this team's going to win games, they have to find ways for Fabian Zetterlund to score goals or at the very least get points. He only has the 1 assist still.
Yes. Big problem. Only 8 games left in the regular season. They need to find offense now and in prime moments of the game, not when it's out of reach multiple times. You get shut out in Pittsburgh, and then you come in at home, and it's 2-0 for Buffalo 10 minutes into the game. Like, we just cannot be playing from behind. Got to find ways to play with the lead. The Senators still an elite team when scoring first, but when they allow the first goal, Pilsy, they're 9-23-6, including 5-10-2 on home ice. That cannot be a trend if and when playoffs come, where if you score or you allow the first goal, you're just going to lose the game. You have to find ways to win in those situations.
Definitely. Now, we know the flip side of that, Ross. When they score first, they're very successful. I don't know if you have that stat on hand.
I do. At home, when they score first, they're 16-1-0.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost one of those situations where it's just like, all right, just watch the game till someone scores, and then, all right, they won. Shut it off. Go to bed.
Forget last goal wins. It's first goal wins for the Ottawa Senators. Like, overall this season, they're 36-0 when they score the first goal in the game, not when they go up 3-0. Like, that feels like a stat where it's like, if you take control of a game early, you're going to win. One goal. How is one goal that important, usually in the first 15 minutes of a game, where that's going to decide what 60 minutes has to offer?
Now, typically, like, that is the case for most teams. I'd be interested to look around the league. I don't know if it's that drastic, but
let's look at the Habs, right? Sure. The team that's right behind Ottawa in the standings. When they score first, they're 24-9-1. And when they allow the first goal, they're 11-21-8. So, of course, you're going to win more than you're going to lose. That's just the odds. But for it to be as drastic as it is, that's what I just simply don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. I mean, on betting odds, usually team to score first and win, it's usually like, I don't know, like a -130, -150. So typically it is in the favor of the team that does it, but it can't be the be all and end all for the Ottawa Senators. And especially when you're up against a team like the Sabres that statistically allows they are one of the teams that allow the most goals per game in the league. Like, you got to be able to overcome being scored on first, and you can't let it slip even further, which is what the Ottawa Senators did there. And that we talked about in the postcast, Ross. That game was won and lost in the first period because sure, that first goal, Allmark wants back. Cousins wants to do a better job boxing out Alex Tuck, but that'll happen. Then the second goal happens. You're like, okay, this isn't good. But the Ottawa Senators were given 3 power play opportunities and didn't build any momentum on them. I think they only got like 1 or 2 shots on all 3 of them. Like, they put themselves in a hole and someone tossed a rope down for them to climb out, and they just left it there and they just stayed in that hole.
Unfortunate, to say the least. What did you think of Travis Green's decision to pull the goalie at the start of a power play with 3.5 minutes left in the game?
Yeah, we talked about this on the postcast too. Martian mentioned he really didn't like it. I agreed with them. My argument was, look, if this was a team that had a pattern or a trend of being successful when they pull the goalie, different story. You want to do that. You want to get that advantage if the numbers are on your side. But this team has struggled to score when they pull the goalie, or they struggle to score when the other team pulls the goalie. And when you do that, when the other team has a penalty, the risk versus reward for me doesn't always line up, because that team can ice the puck and shoot for the net without any consequences. And 6-on-4, I'm not so sure that that's a major advantage when you're in the other team's offensive zone, because there's just so little space with all those players in there. And I don't think that's the play I would have done, Ross. Maybe what we talked about is let the power play do its thing. And if you get an ozone draw with like 30 seconds left or whatever, maybe then you look at doing that. But personally, I didn't think that was the right choice.
I didn't think so either. And then for the player to just be that wide open and have time to kind of get the old pool cue out and say, I'm going to put it exactly where I need to, it just felt like it was a self-inflicted wound in last night's loss. Not that it was guaranteed they were going to come back, but that was a golden opportunity to push themselves into a position where they can. And instead, it's in the back of your net, and everybody leaves 3 minutes early in this game with a little garbage time at the end. And they pulled the goalie again, down 3. And I'm convinced that was just to practice their 6-on-5 play.
That was my thought as well. I was like, look, at this point, you're so bad at this. This game's already out of reach. This is just to see if the boys can generate some sort of momentum and for the film study the next day.
The common theme in this segment is the Ottawa Senators have not been able to bear down recently and finish on their glorious scoring opportunities. You think of Timmy in front of the net, Shane Pinto cutting across the crease in the third period last night, just unable to get the puck past James Reimer. On the other side, we'll get into some numbers that are concerning, how they can be fixed for the final 8 games of the regular season. And then to wrap up the show, is there legitimate cause for concern that the Senators could completely collapse and miss the playoffs? Those are next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachio Pillsy here, guys. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the purple bag, the salt and pepper flavor, one of my go-tos. But if you don't want to deal with the hard work of cracking open the shells, get the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether you're snacking at your desk at work or at school, or you're on a road trip, bring them along in the car if you need a quick protein boost. They are always a great go-to option. I love cracking open the shells. I love watching a movie and working away at that snack. So you can too. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork. It's Canadian made, Canadian produced, and it is delicious as well. It's premium meats and seafood, and they are delivering to all of Ontario, all of Quebec, even our friends up in Nunavut. They also have their storefront on Carling Avenue. You can go check out farm2forkdelivery.ca to check out all their great meat options. I'm talking all natural, no hormones, no antibiotics. They're gluten-free meats, and they're locally farmed, delivered directly to your door. They've already got great deals on their website. You can get the WFT box. It's a value box with a whole lot of meat. They've got boneless, skinless chicken breast chunks, chicken legs, chicken wings, burgers, ground beef, pork chops, bacon, Italian sausage. It's all flash frozen for peak freshness. It is the response to outrageous food prices. Everyone saying WTF is going on. So instead of what's happening with your grocery bill, just saying what's in the farm. That's more like it. Bring the farm to your freezer with those premium meats and seafoods. And because they are flash frozen, individually packaged, you're able to just pull out what you need on any given day. Don't be hungry and be fulfilled when you eat at Farm to Fork. Go to farm2forkdelivery.ca. That is the number 2, farm2forkdelivery.ca. Support local and support Farm to Fork Delivery. You can use our promo code LOCKEDON40 for $40 off your first order. We know you're going to love it, and we want to take $40 off your first order by going to farm2forkdelivery.ca and using the promo code LOCKEDON40. I always have some in my parents' freezer. They love it too. They're pulling out the burgers on any given night. Barbecue season is around the corner. I know the snow doesn't make it feel that way, but it is. So get to farm2forkdelivery.ca. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, Pillsy. So, disappointing loss last night to the Buffalo Sabres. 5-2 was the final score. It was Dylan Cousins, Drake Batherson's off night, to say the least. Those guys were dash deeps, and Dylan Cousins was on the wrong end of a brutal turnover on the 4-1 goal where he put it right on the stick of his former teammate Peyton Krebs. He went in and made absolutely no mistake. So disappointing effort, there's no doubt, all around. Senators with an off-ice workout today, so we won't get any line combinations. That will be at 11:30, which is exactly when we're recording right now, so I'm sure you'll get some media from the Senators a little later on today. Tomorrow, though, another huge test against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're giving away a ton of tickets, so go to Send Central on Twitter to learn more about that. Before we get into this segment about the lack of finishing ability for the Ottawa Senators recently, I do want to give a little love to a milestone for Senators defenseman Jake Sanderson. Jake Sanderson's goal last night in the third period was his 50th point this season. That is the 10th, tied for 9th, most points in a single season by a Senators defenseman. And it might not surprise you that 6 of the top 7 are Erik Karlsson seasons with the Senators. The Sens have only had a total of 4 defensemen reach 50 points in a season. Erik Karlsson, Norm Maciver. Everyone remembers Norm Maciver from their inaugural season. How about that, though? 63 points for Norm Maciver in 80 games and a -46 rating. Shout out Norm Maciver. Offenseman, 35 of those points on the power play. Thomas Chabot, Wade Redden, and now you can add Jake Sanderson into the mix. Pillsy, you nailed one of your hot takes right off the bat that Linus Ullmark would re-sign. Well, I said that Jake Sanderson would get the most points in a single season since Erik Karlsson left, which meant he had to beat Thomas Chabot's 55. Well, he needs 5 points in the last 8 games to tie it, 6 points to beat it. I say he does it.
Yeah, I think he can do it, Ross. And I mean, if this team's going to win, they're going to need Jake Sanderson to be a big part of that. And this team needs to find offense from the back end. And Jake Sanderson has done a really good job of being much more confident shooting the puck, and he's found success. I find, Ross, Sandy does such a good job, and last night's goal was a perfect example of it. Finding a lane, scanning his options, and then realizing, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to rip it, but he doesn't do the clap bomb that misses 3 feet wide. He doesn't try to put a lot of power on it. It's about the accuracy. If you watch the replay, the angle, James Reimer doesn't have a chance at seeing that puck. There's traffic in front, and Sanderson gets it to the far side of the net. So not only does Reimer not see it, he's in a position where that's difficult for him to reach over and stop. Great play by Sandy. I'm loving the confidence he has offensively.
He leads all Senators defensemen in points since January 25th, and he is only 1 point back of Tim Stützle for the team lead. That's over a 26-game sample size. Jake Sanderson has been everything you could ask for and more. I mean, he's got 7 goals over the last 26 games, which is tied for 5th on the team. And in even strength goals, Pillsy, he's tied for 6th as well, which is great for Jake Sanderson, but probably not great for the Ottawa Senators. The Sens have had a bit of finishing problems when they're not facing Alex Lyon recently, who has obviously struggled. He had a -2 goals saved above expected in the Senators game against Detroit before he got pulled in the second period. And then Cam Talbot went in and shut the door on them for the most part in this game. It's just been a recurring trend. So we went and we looked, like, are other goalies playing out of their mind against the Senators? Or are they just not putting enough high danger chances on net? And in 2 of the last 6 games, so if you go back to the James Reimer game, or it's 5 games, right? Because 2 goalies played against Detroit there. James Reimer saved almost 3 goals above expected the last time he played Ottawa. Tristan Jarry stopped 2.66 goals above expected in the game on Sunday. And then Reimer was at +186 in last night's game as well. So by the analytics, the Senators should be scoring more, which brings you to your finishing ability. How can Ottawa bear down on these chances better to be able to put the puck in the back of the net more often?
while it's not the no, maybe it is the biggest excuse, but you can't just lean on this excuse. Being without your leading goal scorer, Brady Tkachuk, certainly has an impact. We talked about how all 3 games that Brady hasn't been here, they've lost, and they haven't been able to score many goals. What,
Yeah.
1, 2, and 2?
Yeah, 5 goals in 3 games, all on home ice.
Yeah, so certainly it has an impact, but I mean, my God, the amount of offensive talent that this team has, especially after the trade deadline, adding Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund, you got to be able to find other ways to score. This ties in with the Jake Sanderson conversation, Ross. Jake Sanderson has 167 shots. Tim Stützle, your number 1 centerman, has 142. Sanderson has 25 more shots than Tim Stützle. And our guy, Jack Richardson, posted a clip from Everyday Sens where at near the end of the game, Timmy has a perfect opportunity in the slot and he passes it over to the corner. Now, I don't know if he was trying to do his best JJ Peterka move there, or no. It was Tage Thompson to Peterka because Thompson was perfectly in the slot. And even Noodle said, hey, that's a good spot to shoot the puck. But he passes it over to Peterka in the corner, and Peterka knows exactly what he wants. He one-touches it back to him in the slot. I don't know if maybe that's what Timmy was trying to do. But if you're going to do that, you got to make a good pass. He makes a bad pass, and the player bobbles it. So I want to see Timmy shoot the puck more. He has a bit of Jason Spezza to him where it just drives you nuts. You're like, I know you're a playmaker and I know you've got those silky passes, but you've got a great shot too. If you've got an opportunity, if you have an open lane in the slot, 95% of the time you should be shooting that puck. And Timmy's got to shoot the puck more. Like, for a guy with his talent to only have 21 goals and only 3 power play goals for Ross, like 3 power play goals. Last season, he only had the 1. And we were like, okay, he's going to blow those numbers out of the water. Sure, he triples them, but math guy. But 3 power play goals is simply not enough for Tim Stützle.
No, it's not. And it's a trend of his shooting quantity as well. We can talk about the quality of those shots if we need to, but when he scored 39 goals 2 seasons ago, he was averaging 2.92 shots per game, so just under 3. Last season, he was averaging 2.56 shots per game. This year, he's under 2. He's at 1.92 shots on goal per game. Just get up to 3 shots a game, and you're going to put the puck in the back of the net. It just feels like he wants to be so unselfish that it's like almost hurting in a sense. And I know he's got the skill to do it. That's what makes it so frustrating. He had an opportunity in the second period where he passed up a great opportunity as well. Just bear down. Get pucks on net. Get pucks everywhere around the crease. And I know he's not playing with Brady right now, but even when he was this season, a lot of his time is with Brady. Don't you just want to create havoc for him to go to work? Yeah. I just think that that's the number one thing that can change in a matter of an instant that could help Ottawa have success throughout the rest of the season. Like, since the 4 Nations, Timmy's got 4 goals, and one of them was in that Montreal game, the first game back. 4 goals in 18 games. That's the same as Claude Giroux. Like, he needs to be leading this team offensively, and he is in points.
Yep.
But we need more goals from Timmy down the stretch. If Tim Stützle finishes with 26 or more goals, the Senators are going to be just fine. He needs to get at least 5 goals in the last 8 games. Is that too much to ask?
I mean, no, but I don't think it's going to happen based on his shooting production and his goal scoring production, like you said. But even if we look at this, Ross, like, Timmy's at 71 points right now.
Which is 1 more than last year already in 1 less game.
Yep. But even let's say he gets a point per game. So he gets 8 more points, finishes with 79 points. I think if you would have told us at the start of the year that Timmy was finishing with 79 points, I think we would have been disappointed with that. I'm pretty sure we had talks of, hey, Timmy over under 91 points. And people were like, is he going to get to 100 points? And Sens fans said confidently, yeah, I can see him getting to 100 points. So that's 21 points shy of 100 if he gets a point per game for the rest of the season. Now, I'm not trying to, let's not get this twisted. This isn't a dog on Timmy. It's more that, like you said, Ross, we know he has a higher ceiling. We know he can score way more goals. We know he can put up more points on the power play. And if he's not going to find ways to do it as your number 1 centerman, as your arguably top offensively gifted player. You need more from him, and I think he can do more. It's just a matter of being a little bit more selfish. I even think, Ross, if he gets more selfish, that will lead to more assists, like you said, shots on net, rebounds, chances for maybe Brady's not there, but a guy like Fabian Zetterlund could box out in front with that strength and find rebounds. That's a good way for him to get on the board. And if you're not so obviously showing pass every single time, other teams can't cheat on the pass, and you're going to get more open lanes, and you're going to be able to score more, or they're going to have to cover your shot more, and you're going to find guys more open in soft spaces so you can get those assists to them. So this is the point of this conversation is we know Timmy has the talent to elevate his game offensively more.
There's nothing more to say on that part. He had 4 shots on goal last night. Let's see that continue. Let's see Timmy get 4 shots tomorrow against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think it'll be fine. I do love Timmy's physicality, though. He was giving it last night. Huge hit on Jacob Bernard-Docker off the bat, and then he smoked Connor Clifton behind the net as well.
And did that hit draw a penalty or
no?
No,
It should have. Bowen Byram punched him in the face.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's is he buddy? Is Bowen Byram buddies with Jack Hughes? That's the only, or not Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, who got popped by Timmy last weekend. Is that a little retribution?
Yeah, I don't know. Although, Ross, you were arguing that there's no chance that should have been a penalty on Timmy when he said, "What are you going to do?"
He asked. He said, "What are you going to do?"
Yeah, fair. Hey, F around and find out, eh?
Yeah, big time. But I wasn't up in arms about that. The only call that I thought was bogus was the Artem Zub call, interference in front of the net when the Buffalo Sabre crashed into Ullmark and then fell.
Yeah, that was not a great call.
That was tough. So let us know, how can the Ottawa Senators finish more? I'd also like to see more of Chabot's shots get through. I feel like that's something where Sanderson's so good at it, and it feels like Thomas Chabot sometimes he'll
hits
shoot.
a lot of shin pads.
It's a lot of shin pads. And Graham Nichols posted last night, and I thought this was worth noting, that according to the game sheet, Senators had 35 shots on goal. They had 30 shots that were blocked, and 26 missed the net. That feels like a high percentage of shots that missed the net.
And Hamonic didn't even play.
Yeah, what the heck?
We can't even blame Hamonic on that stat.
So that's cause for concern, but it's more minuscule than the big picture. Is there concern of a complete collapse? We'll discuss next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and you're sitting there wondering, well, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, and more, it's easy to lose track of things, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
All right, Pilsy. So just when you think things can't get worse, on a Tuesday night, April 1st, I was waiting for a little April Fools when I opened the out-of-town scoreboard, because holy smokes, it went about as bad as you could have thought. The Montreal Canadiens tie the game with less than 10 seconds left and then beat the Florida Panthers in overtime. The Tampa Bay Lightning beat the New York Islanders, less important in terms of getting into a playoff spot, but more important in terms of setting up a Battle of Ontario. And the Nashville Predators suck at hockey. They couldn't do us even a glimmer of a favor. The Columbus Blue Jackets just steamrolled them 8-4. Heck, it was 3-0 in the first period in that game. It was 4-1 4 minutes into the second. Like, I know they made it 4-3 at one point, but it was never really feeling like that close of a game. Now, at least Ottawa did beat Nashville in both games this season. So you look at it from a standpoint of East versus West. Oh, how did you do against that team in the West? How did we do against that team in the West? But still disappointing result if you're a Senators fan looking at the team that's on the outside looking in outside of a playoff spot. They are now 7 points back of Ottawa, but they do have 2 more head-to-head games. The New York Rangers are playing tonight. That is the lone game that we're going to be tracking heavily tonight. It is the Minnesota Wild visiting the New York Rangers in that game. The only other game that could be of interest to Senators fans is the Toronto Maple Leafs hosting the Florida Panthers. The battle for the top of the Atlantic Division will continue there. How concerned are you that the playoff odds have dropped 1% since last night?
Slightly concerned, not gonna lie, Ross. We tried to hold off the P word for as long as we could. The excitement and the outside pressure got to us, and we caved. We started saying it. We started talking about playoff tickets. And I think we're getting a small slice of humble pie here, being like, hey, nothing is guaranteed till you see that X beside your name. So I think we need to, or I'll speak for myself at least, slow our own roll a little bit, especially with the Ottawa Senators not being that successful recently. But I would say I have a slight concern, but not that big. My big concern now, and this pains me to say, the Montreal Canadiens are a problem. While the Ottawa Senators have been slipping and losing games to bad teams, and even when they win, it's barely hanging on. I'm talking about the games against Detroit. I'm talking about the game against Columbus. Even the Devils game was closer than it needed to be, in my opinion. Like, they're barely hanging on to wins here. The Montreal Canadiens, however, are beating good teams, back-to-back wins up against the Florida Panthers, and we were resting on our strength of schedule, having all these home games. The percentage of strength of schedule statistically was in the Ottawa Senators' favor. I believe it was our guy, Shmuel Bolka, pointed out, hey, the Montreal Canadiens might have an easier strength of schedule going down the stretch, and that's a good point. A lot of their teams that they're up against are out of the playoffs. They have a bunch of home games as well. They're hot right now. I think it's possible that the Montreal Canadiens could find their way to jump the Ottawa Senators, especially they play one more time this season, Ross. I know you're thinking about resting guys in that game. That's your first thought when I talk about that game, but that could be the game of the season right there next Friday.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's scary to think that when you look at how things have gone the last 2 games, only 1 point, but I just think they're fine. I think the Ottawa Senators are perfectly fine. Once they get to 88 points, I think that is a confident place to be to get to the playoffs, because it's not like everybody else is gangbusters and catching up on them. John Rodenberg, TSN 1200 morning host, he pointed out that in the last 8 games, the Sens are 3-4-1. Not great. The Habs are 3-3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Columbus is 3-4-1. And the Rangers are 3-4-1. So they haven't lost any ground. The only thing that's been lost is games remaining, which gives you more and more chance as there's less runway to go. The games against Columbus are huge. The home and home against Columbus is enormous. It's huge. If you can win one of those, even just one, you put yourself in a very opportunistic position. You bring up Montreal. There's room for 2 in the playoffs. Do we want it? No. But there's room for both. It's Columbus and the New York Rangers that you cannot have sneak up on your heels, and then the pressure mounts in the last 5 games of the season. They need to get this done this week. Tampa, Florida. Imagine they win both those games. All of a sudden, this is all for naught.
I can't even imagine them winning both those games, Ross, with the way they've been playing and losing to the Buffalo Sabres like that. I'll be happy if they win one of those games, because those are going to be tough games.
Pilsy, may I ask you what the Senators' record is at home this season against Tampa and Florida?
You may ask me. I do not know.
The answer is they're 1-0-0 against Florida. You might remember it. You were there.
Okay.
For the home opener.
I do recall.
And then they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning at home about a week later. So yes, that was early in the season. But the Senators, they just don't like going to Florida, where they lost 2 in a row to Tampa and then lost to the Panthers.
Let's hope they don't see them in the playoffs then.
Yeah, exactly. That's getting ahead of ourselves just a little
bit.
It
is. Sorry.
I know.
Hold
you
back.
go on this big spiel, this big rant.
Damn.
And then you bring up the P word once again.
My bad.
The Sens are 7 points clear with 8 games left. If they're 7 points clear with 5 games left, I think it's in the bag.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. Like I'm not hugely concerned that they're going to miss the playoffs, but I am concerned that the Montreal Canadiens, with how they've been playing, beating good teams, the strength of their schedule, could leapfrog them. Well,
don't you want cherry blossoms? Don't you want Washington?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I have a slight disdain for the Montreal Canadiens and would not like to see them finish ahead of the Ottawa Senators. That's all.
I'll wrap this segment by power ranking first round opponents, because I am the one who's more confident here. With 8 games left, the Senators are making the playoffs. Toronto 1, Washington 2, Florida 3, Tampa 4. That's my power rankings of opponents. So whether they're first or second wild card isn't a huge deal for me.
No.
If the Senators clinch a playoff spot, I would rest players, even if they haven't clinched the top wild card spot.
Yeah.
Get into the dance, get your ticket.
Yep.
And then go have some fun. That's where I'm at.
And that's fair. I think, Ross, if the Islanders, Blue Jackets, or Rangers were in the Montreal Canadiens spot, I don't think I would have the same feelings about a team flip-flopping wild card spots. But my emotions are getting the best of me. I can't. It's obvious here.
Speaking of the Islanders, just quickly, my final thoughts on today's show. #Sens abroad. Did you see what Patrick Waugh said about Anthony Duclair after last night's game?
He didn't even let the reporter finish the question. He jumped in, he interjected and said Duclair was god-awful.
He was god-awful tonight. He had a bad game. That's why I didn't play him a lot. He's lucky to be in the lineup. Sorry if I lose it on him right now, but that's how I feel.
Wow, I didn't see the full quote, to be honest. I just saw the god-awful part. That's tough for our guy. I'm a big Anthony Duclair fan, so that's tough.
Yeah, tough on the Islanders, too. The PR team cut out Patrick Waugh's answer on him when they posted the post-game press conference.
Okay, that's why then. Wow.
Like they aren't going to be all over every sports TV program.
And that's, what do you call it? Is that the Barbra Streisand effect when you're trying to hide something? It just ends up blowing it even more because everyone's like, wait, why are they hiding that? I want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I will find it.
Yeah, that might have been one where you just let it go and then it doesn't become a story. Well, I mean, it would still be a story, obviously, but it doesn't blow up the way that it is. Yikes. That's tough.
Yeah. Any final thoughts from you on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is the Belleville Senators, Ross, have a big game tonight up against the Syracuse Crunch.
Woo!
That's the team they're chasing for that final spot in the North Division in the AHL. They are 3 points back of the Syracuse Crunch. So a win here would put them just within 1 point. We got to see the Belleville Senators make that push for that final spot.
Yes, and that's the team right ahead of them, so they need those 2 points at home at CAA Arena. Last thing for me, Carter Yakimchuk got his first point in the WHL playoffs, an assist on a second period goal. Calgary won 4-1. They're up 3-0 in their series against Saskatoon. A lot of Sens prospects teams are doing really well so far this playoffs. London also up 3-0. Shout out Blake Montgomery. You have the Brantford Bulldogs and Tomas Hamara up 3-0. And Gabriel Lyson's Barrie Colts are up 2-1. So too are the Kitchener Sens with Luke Ellenis and Matthew and Danovsky. So playoffs continue in the CHL. We'll be following those a little bit at this point, but as they get deeper and deeper, we'll be paying more attention. Of course, we'll be following Carter Yakimchuk every step of the way. For today, we say goodbye. Thank you so much for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. To help us grow, leave a comment below. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.